Sheila. This is the place we come together, the essential intel, the relationship advice, the mental health advice. Welcome aboard. We have got it all. If you're loving what I'm doing, please don't forget to subscribe and share the news of the channel with your friends and family. Let's dive right in. I love this topic today, and I want to thank you so much. Chris, a loyal subscriber, has reached out, and we're going to be talking about, how not dealing with your issues, quite frankly, it has ruined many people's lives. Let me share his note. Dear Sheila, I'm 43 years old, and I'm reaching out because my temper, inability to listen, and compromise and stubborn approach to my positions have left me isolated and lonely yet again. A relationship just ended. This woman was kind, warm, beautiful, and willing to work with me. I shut her out when something did not go my way. I've been in and out of therapy. I thought I had a handle on this stuff, and it keeps resurfacing. How can I expect people to be perfect when I have the problems that I have? I understand this intellectually, but I have problems executing what I know. How can I know these things and still act the way I do? Thanks so much, Chris. Well, Chris, you've come to the right place. This topic is really near and dear to my heart because your letter speaks to you can call it a fatal flaw, a way of thinking that's not really on track. And I say this with all due respect and compassion, that you can intellectually know something that's very different than making a way of life and making what you know from the inside out a part of you. I have found that as far as mental health and people making behavioral changes, substantial changes, how they live, work, and feel, unless those changes are deeply rooted and a part of you, it just feels like I'm just going on and off this roller coaster. So this is it's a specific message today with action items, and I'm going to give you the formula to plug in. How do you know you've actually dealt with something? You've processed it, you made your changes, and you're ready to hold them, because your question is, how can I know this in my mind and I'm still acting this way? So I'm going to be very, very specific. This is the formula. I'm going to go over 3 things, and we might take a few side journeys, as we often do. So the first is, the first step to lasting change is recognition of 2 things. The problem, you must recognize the problem, give it a name, and next to that, we're always, people talk about this problem, that problem. I want you to recognize your strengths too. I want the strengths to be right next to that, running on a parallel track. Because when you recognize, what my deficits are, my challenges, what my strengths are, you're looking at yourself from a very holistic, empowered perspective. And once you recognize it and truly own it, only then are you in a position to do something about it. So we have to own it. I have people, I've sat with them playing all sorts of games with what the real issue is. I had a woman reach out years ago, and she had a temper, and she would unleash on her children. And the label that she was giving is, I get a little bit stressed out, and my cup runs over. Okay, your cup running over is very different than I lose myself, I have a temper, and I become verbally abusive to my children. So what I'm asking everyone to do, it's nothing to be ashamed of. The shame would come in when you're sitting playing games with yourself, not getting the appropriate supports you need. That's something to hang your head down about. But when you said, look, I recognize, I have full transparency, these are my issues, what I have to work on. You don't need to put a billboard on Route 56. You don't need to do that. But you need to be honest with yourself. Make the announcement to yourself, because then that sets you up for step number 2. This is so important to ask yourself a key question. What is it that I get out of it? What do I get out of indulging this behavior? What do I get out of acting this way? What's my payoff? And what's my payout? And don't say, oh, I don't know, I really don't know. Then dig deeper. Because things where you don't get a payoff, things that aren't working for you on some level, you'll stop doing it. You're doing it for a very specific reason. Important to really set the foundation to answer that question. So I've been candid with all of you. Coming of age, I was very indoctrinated into a family system that there was just no communication. I really did not cultivate the voice that I have now. That took time. That happened over years, and I was habituated to kind of keep my mouth shut, be compliant, go along with it. I was what you call an autoresponder. If someone said something compliant, okay, yes, okay. That was how I survived. It was a coping mechanism. Try to just be as good, compliant, as nice as you can. Hopefully everything will stay calm. And so that followed me. Even when I left home, that was a very real active problem that I had to deal with and address. Coming full circle, what did I get out of it when I was really ready to tackle this and give it a name? What I got out of it was it kept things quiet. For me, it kept me out of conflict or confrontation, which was another painful episodes growing up. That's what I didn't want. I want to keep things good, want to keep things quiet. So it was a habitual pattern of behavior that I had to raise my hand and say, this cannot continue anymore. And I'll tell you what did it. It's not always, communication is not always about what you say all the time. Sometimes it's about what you don't say. It can be a double-edged sword, if you will. And this, insistence on my end, just don't say anything. Don't say anything. I can tell you it landed me in a few toxic relationships, a very toxic, manipulative, manipulation-based friendship. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back when I literally found myself humiliated by this individual, because this is something, friendship should have ended many years before this incident. But good old Sheila, just kind of smile, go with it, be compliant, go along. And it just ended in an utter humiliation. And that was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm like, girlfriend, you got some work to do. And sidebar, I also, when I share that story, I love to put this story right next to it. This person who put me through this hell, she reached out some years later asking for forgiveness. And I agreed to chat with her. I am one. If someone has forgiveness, the Lord has forgiven us. So yes, okay, what do you have to say? And it was so interesting that after she apologized and she looked, and you could just see kind of like taking the temperature, like, oh my God, you have changed so much. And I thought to myself, you're damn right. You're damn right. And we both in that moment knew exactly what that meant. This is not a friendship that rekindled, but I share that portion of the story with you to let you know that this work pays you back. And in that moment, I felt the full weight, splendor, and glory of all that effort to learn to claim my authentic voice and move into the world with it. The authentic voice and move through the world with it. This is work that we do. It's not like, oh, you're toiling and climbing up the hill 24/7, 365. The intensity of the work can come and go, but we stay in it, we engage it, and hopefully it becomes a love and a passion for you, because you get everything you put in, you will get back, tenfold, 20-fold. So taking ownership of what the issues are, you celebrate the great attributes you have, but you have to you don't drop ownership and say, oh, I thought about it, I did a little bit of journaling, oh, that's it for me. No, you never drop ownership. You keep it in front of you. As my grandfather would say, the things that are important, you keep it in front of you at all times. It's ongoing accountability work. And so that brings me to number 3. Once you give it a name, you've asked it, what do I get out of this? Then you create your structured plan, and structured being the key word for accountability. And a lot of people think, oh, I've got a structured plan. I work with a therapist. That really gets under my skin, because therapy can be a part of an accountability plan, but too many people use therapy as a crutch, as if sitting and talking to someone once a month or a couple times a month is really about the work of implementation. They are guiding you, they can help hold you accountable, but that plan that you put in place, you have to work that and self-assess and be accountable all the time on a consistent basis. Now, Chris, you said, I I have an issue with a temper. I lose myself. This has caused yet another relationship to vanish from my life. A person with a temper should have a laser focus at all. Anyone you are dealing with, I don't care if it's a little person who's 5 years old or someone who's 65 years old. You should have a constant accountability. It's called a working agreement. A working agreement with yourself. I don't even let the conversation reach the point where I'm building up. Once I'm triggered, when I get that initial in my gut, I pull back. I stand down. Either I'm going to say, you know what, this is going to a place. I don't even let conversations go here anymore. Let me step away. You slow it down. You have to have things in place that are working agreements, tools, and measures of accountability. And I have seen people, I've worked with people that have refined these structured plans to the T. I worked with a man with extreme anger management, and he got to the point where, especially if he was dealing with someone in his family, his romantic relationships, like I'm just telling you now, sometimes I'll just back up because I don't ever want to see myself get there. So he became a master kind of at taking his temperature, the temperature of the conversation, and he got to the point like, I just don't let it get there, because I know once I'm there, anything can come out of my mouth. That is accountability and being plugged in and being aware. For myself, knowing my history of this autoresponder history, it is very common for me to say, you know what? Someone asked me something, let me process that. I'll get back to you. I'm just not sure. I'll get back to you, because I need to stay in touch with what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, the whole 9 yards, and, miles and miles from where that issue was. But I keep that in front of me to honor these working agreements, to honor the growth and the fact that I've raised my hand very high and made the declaration to myself, I'm not going back to that place. I'm just not going back to that place. And I'm not saying you have to walk through life and be a hell raiser. You know, when I talk about accessing your voice, you know, I'm not a hell raiser, but I'll tell you what, I will rock some boats. I'll tip that sucker over if it's necessary. If I believe in it, it's important to me. My voice is fully empowered at this point. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to share. I'm going to implement. I'm going to be the leader in my life and in various situations. So, you know, we have to come to the point where we're moving on working agreements, you know, and no longer is it, oh, you know, I don't want to hurt Jimmy or Jane or John. I love people. I care about people. I don't want to blaze through life hurting anyone. That said, I must honor my truth and intentions on this walk. And at times that does involve people will be hurt. Not because if it's intentional, you know, they may feel a different way or they choose to be hurt by it. But I have seen when you're not honoring intention and honoring your lessons, it's a full recipe for disaster. Back to you, Chris. You know, you mentioned this issue with listening. A working agreement for you would be whoever I'm talking to, I am going to go out of my way to practice active listening. That's a problem for me. I need to not only listen to what you say, I'm going to take a minute after the conversation and walk across the street. That's a technique that I have. It's called walk across the street. And I'm going to repeat it to you, kind of put myself in your shoes, you know, empathy, see how you're feeling. And you let people know this. Hey, I communicate a little bit differently. You know, I want to make sure that I'm hearing you. People love that. It doesn't happen enough, but you have to hold yourself accountable. That's another working agreement. And then you said your stubborn approach. It's kind of your way or the highway. And Chris, love you with all due respect, but you're on the highway alone again because of that stubborn outlook and that stubborn attitude. A working agreement you could have is, it doesn't matter. 2 or 3 times a month, I'm going to try something new. Whoever is in my life, I get my way all the time. I'm going to turn this in. What would you like to do? I'm open. What would you like to do? Oh, but Sheila, what if I don't want to do it? Doesn't matter. It's the act of compromise, the act of keeping an open mind, because it gets old. You know, people say, okay, it has to be your way all the time. I don't want this. That's no fun for me. That's no fun. So, you know, at the end of the day, really dealing with, and most of this stuff comes from childhood. We are the hurts, the wounds, we're programmed. Everyone should have some point in your life where you look back and say, wait a minute, these are the set of operational notes that I received coming of age. Does this match who I want to be in the world, my experience? Might I need to retool and double down and think about this? Challenge what you've been given. You know, if it goes down smooth and easy and makes sense for you and you're living an elevated life, hey, if you like it, I love it. But when I hear from folks like Chris, you know, I'm by myself. I'm habituated into these behaviors. It keeps happening over and over again. Then the question becomes, what am I doing that's inviting this repetition, this pattern to be reinforced? We have choices. Life is very short, you know, and when, you know, friendships falling apart, relationships falling apart, you know, conflict at work, if these are habitual things going on, or, you know, maybe you find yourself, you're just in a funk often, you know, dealing with depression and anxiety. These are habitual ways of thinking and living. You have some options, but it really boils down to your level of commitment, ownership, putting that plan together. And let me tell you, if you're someone dealing with anxiety, stress, depression, there's things that you need to be doing for yourself every single day. You know, when I tell you guys about the acceptance and commitment therapy, you see a video up here on my channel with that, the EFT, the emptying out, lighting the candle every day, getting things off my chest, the walks that I take, the accountability for direct communication, speaking up, advocacy. I'm not just talking here. It's part of the working agreements that I have, and it's necessary to stay on top of it. Sometimes life feels free and easy. It's cool. It's good. It runs in these stretches. Other times when I'm working those agreements, it's like, oh gosh, I'd rather not. This is your working agreement, Sheila. You want to go back to what it was? Oh no, then get on with it. See, that's the coach. When I'm telling you, create that coach, that internal coach that's keeping you accountable. You look at so many of the issues and problems in the world, it's because people, so many don't have accountability measures within themselves. And when you don't have that, anything goes. Anything goes. Another working agreement I have, hey, when that voice comes in, this ain't right. It ain't gonna go down this way. That there was a time in my life that would be ignored. Pipe down. That's honored. That's honored now. Okay, we got to process this, do some further investigations to keep my life lifted, keep sharing these messages of elevation. So I hope that something you've heard here in the video today, Chris and everyone else, answers the question. That's what it means to work on yourself. That's what it means to heal. It's not going to a couple therapy sessions. It's not, I read a couple books or I attended, the retreat. Those are supplements. But this work of accountability, the joy of that accountability, that is ongoing. And when you're knocking the ball out of the park because you run into problems less frequently. Life takes on a different tone and tempo. When things are healthy, they feel healthy and they look healthy, you see. So again, I love sharing these messages with all of you. I'll be back very soon with some more amazing content. If you're loving what I'm doing, please don't forget to subscribe, share the news of the channel with your friends and family, and please leave me some comments. What do you do to keep yourself accountable? How do you know when you've truly worked through something and working on yourself? Okay, I'll see you soon.